Broncos Nation, forget whatever you think you know about how that Green Bay Packers game actually went, because buried inside a lackluster final result is some of the most exciting football news this franchise has handed us all offseason. Bo Nix is officially back, and I do not mean he just picked up where he left off last season. I mean this man looked like he took an actual step forward. And on top of that, we finally got our first real look at what rookie difference maker Jaylen Wad unlocks for this entire offense. And folks, it was electric. There are a couple of injury situations we absolutely have to talk about too, and I will be honest with you up front, I am not nearly as worried as some of the panic out there might suggest. So stick with me because we are covering all of it in this breakdown. But first, if you are new to this channel, I am a diehard Broncos fan, and this is exactly the kind of honest, detailed coverage you are going to get here every single time this team takes the field. So do me a favor and smash that subscribe button right now. We are closing in on 1,000 subscribers, and every single one of you watching can help us get there today. Let us start with the quarterback because this was the entire storyline heading into tonight. All week long, we had been hearing these completely competing narratives about Bo Nix. Was he actually ready to go? Were there real limitations still lingering from that ankle injury? Was he even missing time in practice because he was legitimately hurt? The national media had their version of the story, and Sean Payton had a very different version. And Broncos country, once again, Sean Payton was right. Bo Nix looked like a quarterback with absolutely zero limitations tonight. He did not just look like the guy who finished last season strong. He looked like a guy who found another gear entirely. And this Denver offense, with this version of Bo Nix at the controls, has a real case to be a top 10 unit in the entire league this season. Now let us talk about why, because a massive piece of that puzzle just got introduced to Broncos country tonight in the form of rookie wide receiver Jaylen Wad. This is a player who has produced multiple 1,000-yard seasons in his career. The kind of true difference maker Denver has not had at receiver in a very long time. There had been real concern about whether we would even see Wad tonight, given the injury he battled during training camp. But if you paid close attention to Sean Payton's press conference language, the signs were there that he would suit up, and sure enough, he did. And the connection between Nix and Wad was on display almost immediately. We saw Bo standing in a clean pocket, refusing to settle for a check down like his critics love to claim he always does, and instead ripping a strike right through the middle of the field on a rope. All preseason long, we kept hearing that Bo Nix's arm strength had reached an entirely different level, and tonight was the proof. He used the middle of the field exactly the way this coaching staff wants him to, and Jaylen Wad was standing there wide open against a genuinely excellent Green Bay Packers defense, a unit that honestly could have made a real run at the NFC Championship last season if their kicking game had not let them down. And the part that should have every single Broncos fan buzzing is what happened after the catch. Once the ball was in Jaylen Wad's hands, he turned into an entirely different kind of problem. This offense had a sneaky, misleading stat last season when it came to yards after the catch, because once J.K. Dobbins went down, Denver leaned heavily on a screen game that artificially inflated those numbers. But if you actually watch this offense play, you know the truth. Courtland Sutton is a phenomenal possession receiver, but he is a guy who is fighting through contact, going out of bounds, or winning contested jump balls. Not turning short catches into long gains with pure playmaking ability after the catch. Broncos country has not had a receiver who can do what Jaylen Wad just showed us since the Emmanuel Sanders era, full stop. If I am the Broncos coaching staff, I am shutting Watt down right now and holding him out until Monday Night Football against the Kansas City Chiefs, because we have already seen everything we need to see. Beyond the flashy connection with Wad, Bo Nix just looked comfortable out there in a way that honestly gave me chills thinking about the moment. This is the exact same field where his season and quite possibly a trip to the Super Bowl ended last year when he broke his ankle. The emotional weight of stepping back onto that turf had to be immense, and he did not look rattled for even a single snap. We also got a great look at a new role developing for running back R.J. Harvey, because with Jonah Coleman in the mix and a healthy J.K. Dobbins waiting in the wings, this coaching staff can finally let R.J. Harvey cook in space and do what he does best. And on that big connection with Wad, the broadcast pointed out that it was actually Bo's third read on the play, which tells you everything about how advanced his processing looked tonight. Let us also talk about the circumstances surrounding all of this, because the Broncos did not exactly get a clean, easy start. Denver found itself in an early hole. Surtain had forced a fumble that got the offense fired up and ready to go, And then Green Bay strung together this long penalty aided drive that could have completely deflated Bo Nix before he ever got his first real rhythm going. Instead, he came out and delivered anyway, and here is the fact that matters most, no matter how the rest of this game unfolded. When Bo Nix walked off that field, the Denver Broncos starting offense was leading a genuinely good Green Bay Packers team 10-7. And they did that without J.K. Dobbins in the lineup and with backup center Calvin Brockmorton lining up as the starting center at the position. That is not going to be the case against Kansas City next week, which makes this performance even more impressive in context. It is also worth remembering that Bo Nix's preseason performances historically have not looked like this. Go back and watch his very first preseason game against the Colts. There were flashes, sure, but it was not this. Tonight, we watched this offense pick up almost exactly where it left off at the end of last season, which was a 33-point performance in a playoff game. This unit is going to be great this year, Broncos Nation, and combined with a defense we already know is going to be elite, this is a football team with a real chance to be dangerous from October through January. Now, before we move into the tougher parts of this breakdown, I need you to do something for me. If you are enjoying this kind of detailed, honest coverage, smash that like button right now. And if you have not subscribed yet, this is the moment because we are genuinely so close to 1,000 subscribers on this channel, and every single person watching has the power to help us get there today. All right, let us keep rolling. Pat Surtain deserves a shout out here too because the man looked like an absolute heat-seeking missile out there all night. He was the one credited with forcing that early fumble, and even though it ultimately got overturned, the physicality on display was undeniable, including a legitimately violent hit he laid on one of the more hyped up wide receivers in the entire NFL, in Christian Watson. Reports out of Broncos camp all offseason have suggested Surtain has been lobbying coaches to actually play meaningful snaps in the preseason rather than sitting because he refuses to treat any game like it does not matter. And tonight was proof of exactly that mentality in action. Now, for the parts of this game that were not so pretty, backup quarterback Jarrett Stidham did not impress me tonight, plain and simple. He threw an interception that, had the defender simply stayed on his feet, likely turns into a pick six the other way. And here is where things get interesting from a roster construction standpoint, because the Broncos have real options here. If Denver ultimately decides to move on from Stidham, cutting him would free up roughly $3 million in cap space, while trading him could save closer to $6 million against the cap. That kind of flexibility could matter if this front office wants to make a run at retaining pending free agents down the road, names like Marvin Mims, Riley Moss, Brandon Jones, or Nick Bonito. All players who could command real money as their situations develop. If Sean Payton decides this roster does not need to carry three quarterbacks, and I genuinely hope that is the direction they go, then riding with Sam Ehlinger as the primary backup behind Bo Nix makes a ton of sense, especially considering we all watched exactly what happened to this offense last season the moment Nix went down with his injury. Now let us get into the situation that has Broncos Nation genuinely holding its breath, and that is the status of cornerback Riley Moss. Moss was involved in a play that initially looked like a fumble recovery before officials ruled it was not actually a fumble, and he left the game shortly after with what appears to be a rib injury, never to return. I want to walk you through exactly what we know and what the range of outcomes looks like here, because there is a lot of unnecessary panic floating around. The absolute worst case scenario is the kind of situation we saw a few years back with a quarterback who suffered a rib injury in a spot where doctors were concerned about a potential punctured lung. A situation serious enough to end that player's season after roughly 8 missed games. That is the doomsday outcome, and it is important context to have. But the far more common outcome with a broken rib in football is simply a few weeks of intense soreness, and players push through that kind of injury constantly. There are documented cases of cornerbacks returning to play with broken ribs within 2 to 3 weeks of the initial injury, which puts a realistic, best case, that is still real injury timeline well within reach for Riley Moss if this does turn out to be a fracture rather than simply a deep bruise. As of this recording, we are still waiting on official word from the medical staff and coaches, and the moment that update drops, we will have a full breakdown for you. So make sure that notification bell is turned on. The one genuine silver lining in all of this is how well the depth behind Moss responded. Rookie cornerback Jade Barron stepped in and was not picked on whatsoever the rest of the way, and reports out of the coaching staff, including from defensive-minded voices like Vance Joseph, have been overwhelmingly positive about how Barron has looked. There has been a small pocket of Denver media suggesting Barron looks overwhelmed, but based on what we saw tonight and what is being said inside the building, I do not buy that narrative at all. This secondary is legitimately 3 deep at cornerback, with Chris Abrams-Drain rounding out that group, even though he did get picked on a bit in the second half, something we will dig into further in a separate breakdown. I also want to push back a little on how flat this team looked once the starters came off the field, because there is real context here worth remembering. This was a preseason game. Officials are still working out their own timing and consistency, and there were some genuinely questionable calls that swung momentum in Green Bay's favor, including a roughing the passer flag on Q Robinson that came on a clean tackle as the ball was already leaving the quarterback's hand, the kind of call that simply does not happen once the games start counting for real. There is also a fascinating rivalry angle bubbling under the surface here that explains why Green Bay played with this much intensity in what is supposed to be a meaningless exhibition game. The Broncos have genuinely owned this series against the Packers over the last several seasons, even during a rough 2-5 stretch a couple years back. Last year, Denver blew out a red-hot Green Bay team in the game where Micah Parsons got hurt, and there is real bad blood dating back to a joint training camp practice last summer where these two teams reportedly went at it, with the Green Bay coaching staff admitting afterward that Denver got the better of them, only for Denver to then go out and beat them 27-2 in the preseason matchup that followed. Green Bay is also coming off a bad loss to Pittsburgh last week, so head coach Matt LaFleur clearly used all of that motivation to fire his roster up tonight. And honestly, Broncos Nation, that kind of extra juice from an opponent finding a chip on their shoulder is nothing new. We saw the exact same story last season when the Jacksonville Jaguars used a comment from this coaching staff as bulletin board material and pulled off an upset in the middle of a 10-game winning streak. It did not matter in the end. Denver still secured the number 1 seed in the AFC, still had home field advantage throughout the playoffs, and was one broken ankle away from a trip to the Super Bowl. So do not read too much into a sloppy final scoreline tonight, Broncos Nation. What actually matters is this. Bo Nix is back, and he looks even better than the version of himself that merely carried this team to a championship. Jaylen Wad is the real deal, and when the starters walked off that field, the Denver Broncos were beating a genuinely excellent Green Bay Packers football team 10-7. This is an offense with legitimate firework potential, paired with the defense we already know is elite, and there is a whole lot to be excited about heading into the regular season. So here is what I want to know from all of you down in the comments. Have you seen enough from Bo Nix this preseason that you would rather shut him down completely and let him rest before a tough Minnesota Vikings defense next week? Or do you want to see him get one more series against Brian Flores and that Vikings unit before the games start counting for real? Let me know, because I genuinely want to hear where Broncos Nation stands on this one. And do not forget, my hot take heading into this season has been that Bo Nix is going to find himself squarely in the MVP conversation, and after watching him post a passer rating in the 129 range tonight, I am more confident in that take than ever. That is going to do it for this breakdown, Broncos Nation. But before you go, I need 3 things from you. First, if you have not subscribed yet, please hit that button right now, because we are so close to 1,000 subscribers, and every single person watching this video can be the one who helps us get there today. Second, smash that like button, because it genuinely helps this channel reach more Broncos fans just like you every single day. And third, drop a comment letting me know your thoughts on Bo Nix, Jaylen Wad, and whether you want to see the starters play again next week, because I read every single one of them. We have got a full second half breakdown coming your way, along with complete coverage of every Broncos press conference, so make sure that notification bell is on so you do not miss a thing.
Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 2,000 subscribers and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy the content, please hit that subscribe button right now.